tarde. ¿Cómo están? Llegamos.
I came to Angola as a 28-year-old, so a couple of years ago now. I did not especially ask for Angola. I wanted to be a missionary, wherever there was a need for one. When they sent me, I had to look at the map because I wasn't quite sure where exactly Angola was located. But at the same time, I felt a great love. I practically lived in the war zone of this civil conflict for 6 years. The first shock I lived through on coming here, the most powerful of all, was the contact I had with the society here in Luena, a highly militarized town where everyone was a soldier. A vindication of violence as a means of achieving peace, a constant excitement with war and violence, all in pursuit of peace. It stood out in sharp contrast with the life we led in our Christian communities. Our diocese is the largest in terms of area of all of Angola's dioceses, 223,000 square kilometers, with around 800,000 inhabitants. Being realistic, I believe that of those, about 10% or even less are Catholics. In the country as a whole, about 50 to 60%. That means that we are probably situated on a territory with proportionately the least number of Catholics. Part of the reason for this is that evangelization began very late here, whilst on the other hand the consequences of war were very destructive here. All the churches were destroyed and the great majority of missionaries left the country. There is a great yearning for God. If we don't fill it, others will. The majority of our population is rural. They live off the land as well as from fishing, because though there is no sea, there are many rivers and lakes, vast areas that become submerged in the rainy season. However, this is not only a poor area, but also a forgotten one. We have no trains and no good roads to transport our goods to other parts of the country. The majority of our people have no electricity supply. There are great difficulties with access to education. The majority still cannot read or write. For example, many people here earn $100 a month, whilst the price of a sack of cement can reach 50 euros. In other words, one wage packet is worth 2 sacks of cement. Many things are lacking here. This is the Diocese of Moxico, otherwise known as Luena. Kazombo, we have to leave from here, bypass all that, then drive around here to reach Kazombo. Kazombo parish is huge, covering an area of 48,000 square kilometers. There are communities here that have never been visited. There was nobody to go to them. It seems that the more distant the communities are, the more appreciative they are of a missionary's and bishop's visitation. There are practically no paved roads here. There are places with incredible mud, sand, whole tracts of sand, potholes big enough to damage a car and even throw it upside down. Bridges. We survived many difficult situations on bridges, including the threat of falling into the abyss, down a crevice, as well as into a river. Crossing rivers, sometimes without a bridge or unstable, dangerous ones, is a challenge. One must like adventure. If not, things could become somewhat difficult. There are all sorts of surprises on the road. There are roads that pass through areas with an abundance of wild animals. Lions, hyenas, lycaons, which are packs of wild dogs. And then there is the condition of the roads. The holes that we have, which many a time means spending 3-4 hours trying to get a vehicle out of the mud. We also have a big problem with landmines in this province. In some places their position is noted, and we know the whereabouts of minefields. There is a sign, a triangle, a warning of a mine threat. But there are areas that are cleared of mines twice over, as new minefields are discovered in the vicinity. A mine exploded on my road. 2 people died. God spared me that time. Why? I don't know. However, mine accidents do in fact happen often. Alas, mines do not have a sell-by date. It is a weapon like no other, in that nobody directs it. Anybody who passes, young or old, will set a mine off. The first challenge we face is the great shortage of missionaries and priests. The majority of our 14 parishes have no priest. We have many parishes where serving priests are elderly. On the other hand, the diocese had up to now no organizational structures of its own, enabling it to train priests. That was one of our great dilemmas. How to train priests locally, instill in them a love of diocese and the ability to identify with this nation, put down roots here and seek to evangelize it. That is why, in spite of many difficulties, we decided to set up a propaedeutical seminary. Next year we want to open an intermediate seminary. There are areas that have had no missionary for over 30 years. Last year we visited a certain community, a populous and animated community that had never taken part in a mass.
Então vamos fazer como sempre fazemos assim um pequeno encontro, né? Já fizemos há poucos dias, mas agora
Our second priority is training catechists. We run an itinerant catechist education course that aims to alphabetize, but also to teach participants how to build a chapel, recite morning and evening prayers, how to encourage various community groups to greater activity, and how to teach the catechism. Parishes, for example, number 130 communities, and so the number of catechists oscillates around the 200 mark. In such situations, catechists are both guides and leaders of their respective communities. We have 14 parishes, some very far-flung. However, the chief characteristic is that in their majority they are in ruins. Mission houses, day schools, boarding schools, and of course the churches. Practically not a single new church has been built in the last 30 years.
In 1950, two priests arrived here, Fathers Bonifacio and Pedro, who were also the first missionaries to come here. There was also Brother Salvatore and later Father Antonio Ferretta. They worked hard together with us, built many chapels, and founded communities. There was a community in every district. In 1970, they began building this church, completed by 1974. But when the war began, everything was destroyed. Between 1981 and 82. Yes, between. They destroyed all this between those years. They dynamited all the surrounding buildings and buried people over there. Here, under this mangrove? Yes. Here within the mission grounds, they buried people next to the priest's house. The missionaries left because they saw that they were cut off from the rest of the world. The conflict was very violent. They could not stay here on their own, especially as there was no one left. No people. Everybody had run away.
So, Mr. Lingus, from what you know, how long has this place not had a priest?
Very long.
There was no priest here from 1974?
1974 until 2006.
And what did you do through all that time to maintain the faith in people here without a priest?
There was no priest, but catechists always kept an eye on everything.
Here we are in Kazombo. This is the place where the church once stood. And these are the church stairs. But it was all destroyed during the war. This is the former priest's house in which they used to meet. Also destroyed. Other chapels on the way. This one was burnt. The roof was burnt twice. This chapel over here in Kalunda is quite big. The roof covering is being completed, amongst others, thanks to the sale of locally produced honey. The church in Kamanongwe as it used to look. Presently, the church looks like so, totally destroyed by the war. Mass is celebrated in one of the school halls.
Sacerdote
The priest lives in this house,
che foi
which was plundered 3 times during the war
sacchiata, mas 3 vezes durante a guerra.
and consequently has no doors or windows.
Portas nem janelas. O teto também foi.
The ceiling was also practically totally destroyed.
Então eu comecei a ser bispo desta diocese no dia 9 de março.
I became bishop of this diocese on March 9th, 2008. I have visited many places. Every parish has 2 or 3 destroyed churches. Over 30 destroyed churches in all.
Eles saíram aqui em 1999.
Mukuya mu Zambia.
Quando foram para Zâmbia.
Zambia tunakaa mo 4 anos.
Este povo aqui de Mochico é dos povos que mais sofreu.
These people, the Moshiko people, have more than any other felt the consequences of this war. What remains are a people crippled, with a life of limited prospects. They believe that they have lost the best years of their lives. That is sad, even sadder than to die in battle, because to die is straightforward, understandable, whilst for a person to live without any internal conviction.
Parece que o único valor é sobreviver.
During a war, only survival seems to have any value. Life is often very threatened. We lived through many situations, in a variety of circumstances, where I lived another moment, while someone else died, offered their life.
Outros morreram, mas eu pronto sacrifiquei com a vida. É duro, por exemplo, uma mãe que vê.
This is hard, for example, for a mother who in a short span of 6 months witnessed the death of her 4 sons. That is much to bear. Yet she had to continue the fight, for she has 3 or 4 others that continue to live. That is war, deeply humiliating for people. What proved most difficult on many occasions after the war had ended was to believe that there was any inner conviction amongst the people that life could be lived to the full, could be happy. Many people no longer believe, but God believes in them, and so we must show that God truly breathes in people, that man is in his heart.
Ngutume tata nanguya Tipako chingandu Ngutume tata nanguya Tipako Luena Ngutume tata nanguya Tipako Lukonya Ngutume tata nanguya Tipako Landu Ngutume tata nanguya Wandewe Unene tata Akakutata Awali babandende Ngutume tata nanguya.
Eu pessoalmente estou muito feliz também do que a gente viveu.
I'm personally happy with what we have lived through, very happy. Experiencing war helps one to discover people. Friendships were deep, as was the opportunity to get to know the people, their hearts, lives, customs, and to learn to admire them for their faith, carried by heroism, and their very deep convictions.
De convicção muito profunda.
I learned a lot from people. I believe that my faith became far more alive within me. And trust. One sometimes trusts in one's own ability to achieve much. I learned then to trust God more. Every moment in time has its advantages and challenges. We do indeed presently enjoy greater freedom of action. The Church can preach the gospel in any place, build churches and create educational establishments. On the other hand, I can see that during the war, we missionaries were readier to show heroism and bear sacrifices for the people. That was something that made us happy. Today, life is filled with a multitude of tasks, is more hectic, so that sometimes it seems that we are losing that former trait, that intense self-sacrificing keenness to serve people. Missionary means sent. Sent to preach about Christ. It's a whole internal process, an ability to listen, an ability to let go of the many things we carry and see what God has already achieved before our arrival. I lived a very good life in Argentina. I arrived here to my community of 3 missionaries, no fellow countrymen. There were no mobile phones at the time, no internet, whilst letters took 40 days to reach us. A mountain of letters was delivered to begin with, but the numbers diminished with time, until links with former places I'd been to ceased altogether. But that brought advantages in the form of a great ability to integrate more closely with these people. I believe that the daily Eucharist is what makes me strong. I celebrate it with a great faith in the presence of Jesus Christ within it, even physical. If we are at times subjected to intense pressures, for various reasons, the Eucharist gives us strength. I can do all things in Him who strengthens me. In fact, our strength and energy flow from there. A missionary life brings many joys. Many years ago here in Angola, I was sitting at a table talking with a certain young man in an effort to learn the local language. There was a child there, a 2 or 3-year-old girl. He told her, "Don't bother that white man, and be quiet." And she answered, "He's not white. He's not white." Experiences were tough at times, but they were very happy, very good. Truly we say that life is worth the candle. Life is worth living. There is a bishop here who wanted to escape the eye of the camera more than anything else. However, I wish to ask you to pray for this nation. When we look at the challenges facing this diocese in human terms, even thinking about solving them seems well nigh impossible. Still, it is not us who write this nation's history and life story. It is God Himself who leads His people through life. We live this faith and we work so that this nation may develop, love God, and follow Him with all its heart. That's it.